So on to another topic regarding China and their current influence on the Western gaming market. Tencent, which is a big corporation in China, they've apparently been designated as a Chinese military company by the U.S. government. And well, this is also the U.S. Department of Defense that said that. Yeah, again, as I mentioned, Tencent is a pretty big corporation that has a big control over a lot of Western gaming studios, including like Riot Games, who owns League of Legends. And yeah, some representatives at Tencent are not happy. They said, like a spokeswoman said, like in an email, that like they claim they're not a military company or a supplier, which is half true, because the thing is, when it comes to Chinese corporations like Tencent and NetEase, they, as the two biggest corporations in China, they are directly connected with the Chinese government, and this is basically a mandatory thing, especially when you're a big company in China. You have to have an office that's directly connected with the Chinese government. And a lot of companies in China have to be connected with the Chinese government, even the smaller ones. Although with the smaller companies in China, basically you just need to have like one representative, and you can have like a broom closet in the corner that says, okay, that's our China office, that's our China government office right there. Okay, here's our Chinese government representative. Okay, just to let you know that we are, like, they can check in on us. But other than that, they pretty much don't like spend a lot of time with the companies. It's always the bigger companies like Tencent and NetEase and even Hoyoverse. They've gotten really big over the last few years. But yeah, and there's always this big concern that having a connection with the Chinese government means that they do, in a way, have a connection with the Chinese military. And a lot of people consider this a security risk, which is a bit like frustrating to hear, considering how much the US government constantly says that, like, applications like TikTok are a threat to national security. And if this is the case, then why haven't these like applications, why haven't these programs been banished by now? It's been said both in the Trump administration and the Biden administration that these apps like TikTok are a threat to national security. So why haven't they been removed yet? It's just a kind of place. Are you gonna shit or get off the pot at this point? Because if it's really that much of an issue, you would have done something about it now, instead of just keep talking out of your behind when it comes to Chinese security. But as it stands, yes and no. Tencent in America is obviously has ties with the military, but I don't think that is as big of a deal as the government is making it out to be.
I kind of agree with you on that. I don't think it's as big as a deal like you said. It's just kind of how their country works right now. Everything has to go through them into their government. So yes, is like you said, is it very possible that they could be linked to the military? Of course, but that's just kind of how their country works in terms of all of the divisions, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of crossover, and that's not the fault of a video game company. This is just how things work here. It's not, it's not part of the United States. So no, I don't think Tencent has any I don't want to say evil. I want to find the best word for it. Like nefarious thoughts of trying to hack into the United States government and try through our games and stuff like that.
I mean,
but
yeah,
I think where it really just simply comes down to, like you said, the current, well, both administrations, but the next coming administration is very, very keen on planting tariffs on anything that is Chinese based. And I think this is just another story that they want to sit here and bring that up that, hey, we're really going to go after China and their tariffs and stuff like that. And I think this is just another thing to kind of drum up and add onto this national security risk of what these video game Chinese companies will end up doing. So with that being said, whether or not that comes into fact. Now, the thing that I was thinking about that, like you said, you didn't mention a lot of Tencent, you didn't mention NetEase, you didn't mention a lot of Hoyoverse games. Where do you, in terms of that, how do you feel with this, so much of this focus on these Chinese game companies? How will that play in terms of how games are being presented in the United States? You would have to feel like maybe that will affect it in a financial level in terms of price points being changed up and stuff like that to be able to counteract whatever it's going to happen in the next upcoming administration.
Probably. I mean, I believe I'm not too sure. Someone can probably correct me, but I believe.
Yeah, we're not into geopolitics.
Yeah, I believe that the tariffs are on like physical goods, not digital. So I don't feel like pricing is going to.
We don't know that
be
yet.
Affected. Like, okay, yeah, I'm not too sure. Again, someone could probably correct me, someone who's more knowledgeable. I mean, my knowledge on Chinese politics is still very limited. I do spend a lot of time checking out channels like China Uncensored and China Observer for what's going on in that country. And I do understand the need for concern, but at what point does all this concern turn into fear mongering and propaganda that every little because come on, I don't believe every single Chinese made program is a spyware app, at least not to the extent that every program, that online program, connected program, harvests data the same way that every other program that's not Chinese made harvests data. Literally if you're connected to the internet, something or someone is harvesting your data. And I believe that's the extent of what a lot of these online programs, Chinese or otherwise,
almost
are
99%
doing.
of your programs that you have on your computer right now will collect data because you agree to it.
Yeah.
Off the bat.
Yeah,
that legally long thing that you never bother to read.
Yeah, the terms of service.
Yeah, you already agreed to it. So
terms of service, terms of agreement, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I feel like if there's really a concern for national security when it comes to anything that's a Chinese made game or Chinese made app, well, besides TikTok, because that actually has been proven to be a legitimate security risk, but everything else, I'm pretty sure if we can go to that far extent to figure out that things like TikTok has that security risk, I'm pretty sure everyone would have done the same for every other Chinese made app or Chinese made game.
Yeah, but TikTok's still in the country, so even though it's been proven, I don't know, it would have been banned by now. So I don't, you even said it yourself. So it isn't much to be. It's probably not as big as they're making it out to be. But like I said, the next people are coming in are going to try to make it bigger than what it really is. So whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, I am going to be very curious to see how this affects a lot of these games that are, like I said, a lot like the games that are Chinese based that are in the country. Even Riot, it's a part of Tencent pretty much right now. It is going to be very interesting to see how they are going to be effective in terms of financially, in terms of how games are being sit down and distributed. So that's going to be definitely be interesting.
I mean, I just do believe that if some kind of sweeping bans happen on anything that's Chinese made, I feel like there's going to be a big backlash to it, especially again with a lot of Chinese made games are really pushing into the Western market, and they're really taking a big big hold on Western gamers right now. Big examples being Path of Exile 2,
also under Tencent.
Yeah, also again, agreed. And and ironically, Marvel Rivals, which is developed by NetEase Games.
Yep.
And if U.S. government decided they wanted to ban that, you're gonna upset a lot of people to the point where I feel like that would affect the government negatively to like want to vote politicians out and primary politicians and whatnot, because a lot of people don't seem to understand how important soft power is when it comes to like geopolitics. And again, a YouTuber named like Romanian V explains this so well, that like soft power is something that every country engages in. Exporting your culture, exporting your products to that people really like or really want to have, really is a form of soft power. US does it all the time with Hollywood, exporting our movies to China and Asia and all over the world, and people obviously gives a very positive opinion on the US through our movies, and China is doing the same thing through their video games. So if some politician were to badmouth China, you know, we'll get a lot of people saying, hey, like, what are you doing? Don't badmouth China. They make really cool video games. Hey, you know what? I'm going to freaking vote against you because you went against China, because I like China and they make cool video games. And I feel like that's a lot of these, like,
do you feel that could, but do you feel like that could be something that gets pushed in this current, okay, I hate talking about politics, but do you think that could be something that could get pushed into this current administration, because everything is about, hey, let's keep pro-American, keep everything in American and stuff like that? So that could also come in soft power, like you said, with our entertainment, and then trying to, hey, bolster up our video game industry, our US game industry over the rivals of such things like that.
I mean, it could, but unfortunately the big issue is, what is the West producing, especially in the AAA space, that can compete with China? And right,
that's not the point. Like, that's not honestly the point. It's like, we don't really care what it's about keeping us here. It's not about trying to promote that, which I totally agree. Like you said about the whole soft power, that's what makes things work, right? Us sharing our art with other people, them sharing their art back. That's the thing. What if this administration becomes so big-headed? It's like, no, boom, we're not doing that. It's all American. All we care about, our American art, our American products, our American games. Well, that's the shit that we want to support.
Well, that's going to that's only going to affect them negatively, because again, like I was trying to get to, it's just right now the West isn't producing anything that's positive. If they were like making stuff that was as good as what China is doing, yeah, that would work. But right now the West isn't doing that. A lot of games that they're making can't compete with China. Like, China is making games that are just printing money hand over fist. Like, in like people want to say something like, oh, we still have like GTA 6. Well, China is they're making their own GTA in the form of that one game called Ananta. And a lot of people are calling that anime GTA, and a lot of people are taking to that game very favorably.
Yeah, but I understand that, because, like, again, China has always had influence. Yeah, but China has always had influence of what we made. So, like, as great as that is going to be cute, I don't think it's going to be nowhere what GTA 6 is going to bring down to the table. Yeah, and I get it. It was in the same genre, but it's nowhere compared to what GTA 6 is bringing down to the table in terms of maybe story, in terms of visuals, in terms of stuff like that. Granted, so
well, obviously, but the fact is, the point is that I'm trying to make is that they're offering alternatives to what we have. We're not making alternatives to what they have.
Yeah, because China has always bite off what we made. And everything that we stole, like, I'm not okay. Well, I shouldn't say that. Everything they've taken from us is what they duplicated.
Yeah, it is true. Like, but back in the day, obviously, that was like, Chinese made stuff was always like mocked and ridiculed because it's just like a cheap copy. Mm-hmm. But now China has gotten to the point where now they are making stuff that a lot of people would say is the American made is a cheap knockoff of Chinese made stuff.
Yeah, but because they've always been taking that stuff off from us. They've had years of taking what we've done and making it their own. Yeah, because they've been taking it for years, and now to the point that they are able to now, they've learned from us right now, which is one of the bigger, I guess, quote, security risks that they're worried about. of stuff, taking what we have worked on and then kind of make it their own, which is totally fine right now, to the point where they're, like you said, they're at a level where we don't need to be doing that anymore. We can make our own stuff, which, like you said, is being produced better than us right now here in the West.
And that's just like the big issue. Is just like we should, like they should not be the trendsetters. The West should be the trendsetters, but it's just like, again, I know you don't, like you said, you don't want to get political, but unfortunately it kind of is, to the extent that the reason why the West can't produce good stuff anymore is because of all this ideological drivel that has basically bogged down the industries, like the industries when it comes to just pure creativity. And it's just like frustrating because it really should not be that way. It's really frustrating that, like, I know like YouTubers like Razorfist also have mentioned that China is also one of the biggest people who are funding a lot of this ESG stuff.
What's that?
It's basically the stuff that's connected to whole like DEI initiatives, where you get money based on like DEI, get loans and stuff like that based on how quote unquote progressive your company is. Yeah, like China is one of the biggest ones funding that. And yeah, it's true that they are doing that, but at the same time, it takes two to tango. And the West doesn't have to take these ESG loans. They can make funding other ways, but instead they go for the quote unquote easy money, and it's just been hurting them in the long run. Instead of, like, you know, relying on your customer base for, you know, getting funding, you rely on these loans that always have like a caveat attached to them.
Yeah, well, when it comes to funding, it's not the consumer. It's never been the consumer. It's always been more of the 1% people, you know, that you try to get that kind of funding from. Unfortunately, it's the shareholders, the stakeholders that really is where you get most of the funding from. It's not much of the consumers anymore. I know we tried to bring different ideas and programs to hopefully relieve that, where it is more consumer based, making these funds though. But again, I understand that it's the fastest way to get to where you want. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the world works in terms of getting your you know, your things funded and programmed. But like I said, going honestly, like what you're saying, I get Western gaming right now has hit
an identity crisis.
A bit of identity. Yeah, right now we're just in a weird funk, an identity crisis of whatever you like or whatever not. Like, again, I always think that art is always super subjective, and I totally understand that. Whatever you want to, if you don't want to believe in that argument, that's totally fine. But right now we're just, like I said, we're in an identity crisis. So right now, just trying to figure out what people want in terms of games and what people want in the balance. And I understand that, like you said, you don't want to into politics into that, but like art has always been a part of politics. That's never going to be changing out of games, whether you like it or not. That's always going to be, and I think that's just simply just going to flow and I think we're just in a moment where we're just kind of flowing. Like I said, identity crisis. Right now, we're just trying to figure ourselves out. It's going to swing one end. It's right now, it's at one end of the spectrum. It's going to swing the other end of the spectrum. And you're probably going to see that right now. What's the next game that we're going to have a deep review in the next couple of minutes. But at the moment, I think where Western gaming right now is, like you said, I think Western gaming is going to be fine. It's going to find its identity again. And I think we're going to get back to being one of the better teams that make better games. Like I said, it's just right now we're in a lull space right now that we're trying to figure out how that we can meet everybody's demands at the moment. And hopefully that everybody can find their own space in that.
Yeah, I agree. And I do agree to an extent. When it comes to like double A and indie, I definitely feel like the Western gaming like market is going to pick up the slack when it comes to creativity and making games that are just fun for the sake of being fun. Western AAA, I think they're too far gone at this point.
Yeah, we talked about this a lot.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot.
I'm not gonna say much, but we continue.
Yeah, I think that entire Western like AAA industry basically needs to crumble at this point. They're just too. A lot of people say too big to fail, I think a lot of these Western AAA companies are getting to the point where they're too big to succeed. And I feel like there needs to be a hard reset on the AAA Western industry to find before they can produce anything of value that can compete with China. But when it comes to AA and indie, I think they're as healthy as they can be. They're doing just fine. And I think they're going to pick up the slack. And I think at one point they might even become the new AAA industry. And I think that's what's going to happen. And I hope it happens soon, because like we really need to compete again. Because as much as I love my Chinese gacha games, I don't want all my gaming to be like this. I want the West to succeed. And they really need to find themselves again. And I believe it's only the AA and the indie that can really do that.